Used to go live on Facebook, but I'm not allowed it. Well, I can. And actually, when I made a new account, they knew it was me. I did a couple live streams and it had one viewer, which was hilarious. Even though it was like shared around.
My
So
my
crazy.
Facebook, we used to get like 10,000 views, and we
Yeah.
did a podcast, and I even had my assistant share it, and we did everything we could. We had like
Yeah.
2,000 views. I mean,
Yeah.
we've been cut by 80 to 90% on Facebook.
Yeah. It's
80 to
crazy.
90%.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, so we're live up there. I'm just going to close that window so it doesn't bother me.
Okay.
What's up, people in the chat? If you're in there, just so you know, I never look at it because it's too distracting, but I appreciate you being there. Some people do. I'm like, how do you have a conversation then? It's way too distracting.
So does it naturally put in the hashtags up there for you, or you put those in?
In the description, I think I got like a presetting that does that, so I have to change them after.
Cool.
Yeah, call it a template.
The upload template.
Mm-hmm. Which I actually need to update. I'm updating all the time with like different social media handles
I
and all
think I'm
the.
just going to start going live on YouTube instead of Facebook, honestly. It
Yeah,
just
yeah.
seems more fun.
It'll be there for a bit until they catch us there. But at least it's like,
For sure.
you all set?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Here we go. Let me record on the computer. Hello and welcome to the Mastermind Body and Spirit Show. I'm your host, Matt Belair. As you know, we are facing extreme censorship alongside many other truth seekers out there. If you want to support this show, please go over to mattbelair.com, sign up for the email list, become a member for exclusive and censorship-free content by donation or even for free. And most importantly, consider doing 3 kind acts wherever you are in the world today. Today's guest is the founder of Wellness Force Media and host of the Wellness Force podcast. He has spent the past 18 years as a trainer, researcher, and facilitator discovering the physical and emotional intelligence for humans to thrive in our modern world. The Wellness Force mission is to help humans heal mental, emotional, and physical health through podcasts, programs, and a global community that believe in optimizing our potential to live life well. His life is dedicated to supporting humanity, coming together as one. Welcome to the show, Josh Trent.
Yes. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me, Matt. I've been so looking forward to this since 2020, the mirror with the crack in it.
Oh, yeah, man. Well, me too. And, we became friends as all this was happening because there was very few people who had a voice in the media that was saying, hey, anybody else notice this crap? And then I commend you because you were in California, which is the worst place for it. You know what I mean? The most vile opposers and,
Yes.
people with the virtue signaling. They're so virtuous that they just gonna, just be ruthless online and just terrible human beings. So, you had it way worse than me. So I commend you for doing that because it takes courage and integrity and truth. And you're just trying to share the information, which is true and factual, have a discussion, and you could be open to being incorrect. We can still have a discussion, but so many people stayed quiet, and now we're here. It's been totally insane, and I just commend you and your work, and it's great to be friends, and I'm super stoked to have you on the show.
Yeah, I enjoyed our last rap session where we learned about your NDE, which I didn't realize that until today. I had one too, so I'm stoked to talk about that with you because I feel like humanity itself is approaching an NDE. I feel like us in the collective are about ready to have an NDE or just a DE. We're at a really pivotal time. We're at a pivotal time where we cannot ignore, we can't pacify, we can't just hope that things get better. Like Dispenza says, hope is a beggar. I believe that. I think we're in a time for intelligence. I think we can apply intelligent hope to the world, but there's a lot of nuance we can explore with everything that you and I study and what we know. And so I'm just stoked that people believe what we believe, and also to enroll people in what we believe because it comes from love, it comes from truth. And not just subjective truth. I'm talking about the universal truth that guides all things. Like that's what I'm really tuning into lately.
Yeah, I love it, man. And we're having a little bit of a discussion before just some of the process you've been going through, because I feel like no one is escaping the process of life right now. Wherever you are, you're either
Yeah.
ignoring what's going on, hoping for the best. You're trying to figure things out. But we're going through a transformation as individuals and also as a collective. And so,
Yep.
you've had some recent powerful experiences, and I'd love for you to kind of share what you've been doing to navigate these times and some of the recent insights you've had. And also, just before we dive in, maybe you want to share a little bit about your background, because like I said too, I've done a lot of coaching, and I have this new coaching group which I've been loving. And I've been saying to people, like, if you want to live your life purpose, if you want to actually do this, it's a commitment that you can't fake. And that's why I respect you as a peer, because I can see the track record of work. People are giving you crap, from the beginning of this. I was like, look at the guy. He's got what, three as many podcasts as me, all on wellness, all on human performance, all on making the world a better place. Look at what he is doing and what he's done. Why are you trying to throw him under the bus? Because, what I've seen is, like, these people who aren't contributing to the world, they just believe what the TV says, and so now they're going to attack anything else. But you have done that commitment. You've done the work. You're committed to this path, and that's what it takes. It's not easy. You're creating it on your own. So I respect you for that, because it's a challenging route to take. If you want to have certainty, get any job, they're going to give you a paycheck. That's certainty. You want to build
Yeah.
it on your own and make a difference. You have to shape that in your own way, and everybody's going to have a challenge. So you've been doing it for a long time, man.
Thank you. I was on a call earlier today with like a traditional company. Some of the companies that sponsor Wellness Force, they have employees and they have staff. And just the way that we engage with each other mentally, verbally, spiritually, it's so different. Like, there are people in companies right now that they're so upset. I'm speaking to the person who's watching or listening, and you literally feel every day like, oh my God, I cannot believe I'm going to go to work again. And I was there. I've been there. Like, my background is 10 years in health and fitness. So I was a fitness professional for 10 years and like 10,000 hours plus with clients. And I got to this point where I was just done. And David Data calls it the space between purposes. I was in that space. I left the fitness industry. There was a massive story that even got me into the fitness industry, which is being born to a mom that has bipolar, and my dad left home when I was super, super young. And I didn't know how to deal with my feelings. So I found a drug called food that a lot of people find. And that drug, to no surprise, without the right physical tools and mental tools, flash forward, I'm 280 pounds. I'm in a job I hate. I'm in a relationship I don't like. And I was ripe for transformation. So I'll never forget this, Matt. I was at a party, like beer pong. You ever played beer pong before?
Oh yeah, I'm awesome at beer pong.
Okay. So I was playing beer pong. I was 21 years old, and I looked down and I saw my belly at that time, and I felt my life. It was almost like my soul was just screaming, and I couldn't pacify it anymore by drinking or drugs or porn or anything else. And it was the first time, really, truly, that I'd ever felt a connection to God, like a higher power. And I just had this message wash over me, and the message was like, "There's way more to life than this. There's more to life than this." So I like put the cup down. I ran home drunk. I ran home drunk for like 3 miles. Got home, pulled open the computer, and I typed in like, "How do I be healthy?" That led me on an 18-month journey of losing 80 pounds, gaining 40 back. All the while, the undercurrent of my psyche was really being fed by Gabor Mate calls the hungry ghost that I wasn't loved, I wasn't cared for, I wasn't supported, which is all a lie. And I got to this point where I was so frustrated with my body, and I was so frustrated with my life and like the outcome of where I was and what I was doing. I like knew there was more to life than this, that I sold everything I owned, man. I moved to Hawaii at about 24 years old. And I found personal training out there at a gym, and I found nature, and I started to have communion with nature and like really be bathed in the salt water of the ocean and like feel the feminine energy from Hawaii, and just really go into myself. I had spent the majority of my life trying to make other people happy, make my parents happy, make school happy, make the world happy. And the whole time just mashing down my own emotions and my own feelings that deserved to be felt, but they didn't know how to be felt. So I found fitness, and then in fitness, it's great. And I know you have a health background as well. It's great to shine light on other people, But what I wasn't doing is when I shine light on other people, guess where it stays dark? It stays dark with me. And we see this with yoga practitioners. We see this with fitness professionals, lots of coaches out there. They'll shine tons of light on other people, but the dark parts of their psyche and their shadow, they never get exposed. And so there was a moment where when I left fitness, I had to shine the light within me because I didn't know what else I wanted to do. It was like my soul was evolving me towards wellness. Fitness is the gateway to wellness. And for me, wellness is the integration of physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, literally combining that holistic circle, much like what we see behind you. Circle is wholeness. Circle is wellness. Anytime I'm having a myopic view of life, no matter if it's like fitness is the only thing or food is the only thing, or there's a blending of all these things. So that led me to what I do now. I had a dark night of the soul moment. Well, multiple. I had multiple dark night of the soul moments. I was on a golf course and I just gotten fired from my corporate job because I wanted that safety that you were talking about. I wanted that perceived safety, which safety is an illusion. To live is to die, and to live is to be unsafe, and that's okay. I didn't know that at the time. I'm crying over a golf course. It's like midnight, and it was another return moment of the hero's journey where I asked God, like, what do you want me to do? And I can remember this. I was like, literally on the tile floor, looking over La Costa Golf Course in Carlsbad at my friend's place, renting a room. By the way, this is the first 6 months of my podcast. This is 2015. I'm hosting a podcast on a rickety ass plastic stand with a crappy little mic in a guest bedroom after I'd put my mom in a mental home, broken up with my ex-girlfriend, and gotten fired from a corporate job. And I just said, fuck it. Kill me. I told God, I was like, God, I'm sorry. Like, I've been disconnected from you for so long. Show me the way. Please show me the way. And I was just crying and crying. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do what I've always wanted to do. And that is hold conversations that have meaning and discover my own physical and emotional intelligence. And I'd put that on the back shelf, Matt. I'd put my little dream in a box. I bought the URL in 2011. I thought I was going to do something about it. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to love myself. I wasn't ready to do the inner work. I wasn't ready to really do what it took to be, quote, somebody who could hold the space. And looking back, I'm like, oh, it's perfect because it brought me here to you now, right? It allows me to speak from a place of truth because I've received and I've had to integrate my own darkness, my own shadow. And that's why I can recognize that in other people. I can recognize that in other people because in another news outlets or speakers or news media that we get, the big part of this for all of us, and to wrap my quick life story, my life in 3 minutes or less, is whatever we do in life, it has to come from a place of inspiration that we're pulled towards, not pushed. And I think for a long time, I just tried to beat the crap out of myself, push myself, motivate myself. But true inspiration comes from a magnetic polar opposite. So you have to be pulled towards that which is attracting you. And I didn't understand that. And especially in 2020, it was a melting of everything that I ever thought about relationships, women, health, wealth, all of it burned to the ground. So in a way, I'm grateful for 2020. And in another way, I think it really caused a collective wound that we haven't even started to look at yet.
Wow, holy smokes, man. Well, I didn't know about the origin story, so I'm glad to learn more about you and your process. That's pretty amazing. And you've obviously dealt with a lot of challenges. And I think, like I said at the beginning, like, I'm a fan of your work. You know, if people aren't listening to the Wellness Force, you come with a sense of integrity and humility, which I think that the spiritual and wellness community need. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, we can do it, and we can be teachers and healers and offer up, you know, what we want to do. But we also have to be willing to be very humble in that pursuit, you know, like an authenticity to put in the work. I call it like the apprenticeship, right? Doing your podcast because you're being pulled towards it in this little rickety room, and then you do it over and over and over and over again because you're being pulled in that direction. You do it for the service, you do it for the integrity. You're not doing it for what you can get, you're doing it because of what you can give and how you'll grow and how you can serve. And I see that in you and your work. So it's beautiful, man. You know, there's a lot of questions that I'd want to ask, but we are discussing before the show something I found that was interesting. You said that you're getting, you know, some insights, and I've had a couple experiences here too, where I was going through all the research, you know, putting in 60, sometimes 80 hours a week since March, trying to get a handle on what the flying F was going on so that when I shared information, I was accurate. right? Or as accurate as possible. I don't want to be sharing misinformation that can harm. I want to share empowering information. And unfortunately, when there's a threat, sometimes it's like, hey, like, just so you know that these needles, that's a threat. You know what I mean? You don't want that. You just so you know that what they're saying about this thing that's going around, it's not as bad as they think. And they're making you do all this stuff if you take the time to peel back the curtain and study. And so I wanted to share that, because if we know what the deception is, we can move toward the solution. It's not to stay in the deception. It's not to stay in the problem. It's to
Yeah.
move toward the solution, but we need to be aware of that first. And so I had a few really interesting experiences, but I know you've been kind of going through something yourself. So I'd love for you to kind of start there and what's been going on recently, and we'll see where it takes us.
You know what? To those who are called right now, like truly called, this is the greatest time for transformation that we'll ever see, I think. We look at all the great world wars or all the things that have happened for humanity, and guess where they've all come from? They've all come from pain and contrast and death and destruction and murder and all these different heinous things that happen. But if you look at human evolution over time, and I guess to juxtapose and to really to dig in with you on a cool level, you know, technology, technium, I had Kevin Kelly on the show. The technium is consciousness experiencing itself through technical form. He calls it the technium. And if you look at Ray Kurzweil's work and singularity, about, I think 6-7 years ago, human evolution, it goes very slowly. I think if you look at our RNA and DNA, we're like basically still knuckle dragging cavemen. We've just grown our prefrontal cortex and our cerebellum to be able to have rational thought and create things. But on a genetic level, we're still cave women and cavemen. We really are. And to deny that is actually part of our sickness, part of our illusion that I'll talk about in a moment. But I wanted to contrast this because if you look at the law of accelerating returns, it's called Moore's law. It states that every 2 years, technology will double in speed and get 50% cut in price. Well, that actually, human evolution and the technium, the law of accelerating returns, they crossed each other about 6 years ago. So now we're in this hockey stick of technology where AI and algorithms and neurolace and all these crazy things where technology is actually infiltrating people's psyche. About 6-7 years ago, it passed human evolution. So we still need a few key things. We have to focus on our healing, our expanding. We have to focus on our sleep, our water, our breathing, our money intelligence, our self-personal growth, our nutrition, and most importantly, our connection to spirit. And I don't care if you want to say that God is a woman or a man or whatever it is, unless we're focused on all those things, then guess what we're doing, man? We are ignoring 98% of our DNA. We're ignoring it. So those pillars that I talked to you about, like if you don't have calibration to those pillars, you are literally ignoring and dishonoring and disrespecting your own evolution and the evolution of our species. So not to guilt anyone, but that's legit. I mean, that's my truth. And the more and more I work in this field and this work, the more I see this as objective truth. Now, you could argue with me and say there's no such thing as objective truth, and that's a rabbit hole of its own. But truthfully, like where we are is we are under attack. This isn't about fear mongering. This is about calling out what is. I like to be in awareness of what is. It doesn't mean that I always find perfect peace in what is. But what is right now, it's the biggest transfer of wealth. It's the largest psychological operation we've ever seen, greater than World War I, greater than Stalin, greater than Mussolini, greater than Hitler, greater than anything we've ever seen. We are in a artificial intelligence tether from the technium that is being abused by dark energy in the world. And that technium is lacing humanity so that it can feed off of our clicks, likes, and human relationships and degrade connection of the American family, of just families in general. It is an attack on every single asset and every single part of our psyche and of our relationships here on planet Earth. And I do believe that humanity will prevail, but the power of choice is ours. The only reason I believe that is because that's what I believe, right? You and I might have similar views. We have some things I'm sure that we don't believe that are exactly perfect and to be human. But to round this out, we have to have a collective awakening here for those that are called, which is how I started the answer to your question. We have to be open. We have to be willing to see the dark parts of us that we've been hating, because that's how we're treating our brothers and sisters in the world. We have to be able to see the shadow part of us that we've been mashing down and not wanting people to see, because that is the exact energy that I bring to anyone. You on a show, me in my relationship, me in my work. However, I am doing my inner work and exploring my shadow and my unhealed wounds from childhood and from collective society, which, by the way, can be like our grandparents, our great-grandparents. That is the degree that I will be able to receive the current moment, which is death, destruction, and control, or fall into victimhood and worry more about Kim Kardashian's sweater or what's going on with Instagram, so I can get as many clicks and likes as I can, so I can go back home, take off my mask, and realize I'm depressed and I hate my life, but on social media it sounds great. And that's the sickness we're in. We're in a collective sickness that is desiring to be healed. All chaos eventually finds order, just like sodium and potassium in the body, just like high-low pressure on Earth. So I do believe that we are heading towards a solution, but it's so radically fucking important that we realize where we are with the chaos, with the pain, with the mind control. Because if we ignore that, it's a corruption of the mind. That's really what we're looking at here.
Yeah, you brought up a lot of great points, and one of the things that I think is important is just understanding that there are predator humans, there are predator organizations, there are predator people, and yes. If you read a book called The Gift of Fear, it talks about how you can protect yourself in certain situations. So we have human trafficking, we have atrocities, we have starvation, and I was always curious how we have these in such large numbers. It doesn't make any sense if humans are good, because I felt like I was fundamentally a good human, and I felt like my friends and everyone I knew was fundamentally a good person. So I was like, there can't be like that many bad people. Like for every bad person, there must be more good. And there is. The challenge is that we work for these systems that are inherently not life affirming. They're not doing positive works in the world, and we're being deceived through our naivety and our compassion. And so it gets hijacked. So we think we're doing a good thing, but we're actually serving a different master. And, a lot of the stuff I've been looking at is getting more biblical. Like you can't serve two masters. And right now we're either serving life, the universe, creator, God, and all that is good, or by default, we're serving the dead corporation or these Luciferian, whatever you want to call them. And the best definition for that is anything that seeks to restrict or bind, anything that is trying to bind or deceive or to manipulate. And you and me and so many other people are getting wiped out, attacked, limited, and we're speaking the truth as actual fact. We'll say, yeah, that was my opinion. I don't know. If I ask you a direct question, you don't know, you'll say, I don't know, right? Sure. Right. If I ask you this, like, oh, well, we found through this data, it's 0.26. We found this is the fact. This is the fact of the matter. And so once we understand that, we can then heal from it. But I feel like it's that cognitive dissonance that's creating this issue, right? And that's how oppressors and that's how these systems work, is through such great deception.
How does cognitive dissonance, where does it originate from? So the origin of dissonance is when the ego is afraid of what it's experiencing. Then it tries to push away whatever is going on. Would you agree that that's true, or would you put different words on that? I mean, really, cognitive dissonance, it's distance.
Yeah, I love that.
So in that same vein, if we all can agree that there's a universal truth, an objective truth, that to be cognitively distant or dissonance from what is, how could you not see, no matter your level of intelligence, no matter your level of awareness, that exactly where we are is in a collective cognitive dissonance right now? Because what's really happening is, and the analogy I could use is, if you were walking on the street and you saw, let's just use a woman, for example. If you saw a woman getting beat by her husband in the street, you'd have to make a decision, wouldn't you? You'd have to make a decision if you were going to go protect a human being, but you'd have to put yourself in danger. But universally, objectively, we can all look at that situation and say, the right thing to do would be to protect someone else's suffering. If it was your children, I'll tell you what, you'd definitely go out in the street, wouldn't you? So who's to say that one life or one soul is more important than another? We're all sentient beings. We all deserve love. I mean, it makes me feel emotional just talking about it, because we are in this society that categorizes and compartmentalizes people. This person's more worthy than that person. The janitor is less worthy than the CEO. It's all fucking bullshit. It's all calculated conditioning to make people fall into droves where they can be controlled and used division as a fuel to split them apart and further make them separate, which is actually the initial lie that I'll go back to on the metaphor with the woman in the street. We all are in a collective choice point. We can either watch COVID bullshit happen, we can watch controlled health outcomes through passports with sticking needles in people's arms with vaccines that haven't been tested. We can watch people be forced to wear masks. Oh, double masks. Did you see this? Triple masks.
And anal swabs.
And anal swabs. It's like, it's like, hey y'all, can you take a breath in through your nose? And can you check in with your somatic experience in your body? And can you ask your central nervous system, is this all okay? Just forget about what you believe. Forget about red or blue or Republican or Democrat or pro or forget about everything that you've learned up to this point. And just in this very moment, can you take a massive breath in through your nose? When you do that, you actually turn on your sympathetic nervous system. When you breathe in through your nose, you are pulling energy up to the crown. When you do that, you become aware in this present moment of what is occurring. We need, Matt, a massive deep breath. That's why I focus so much on breath work. We need a collective deep breath to cure the collective cognitive dissonance, because we are the woman in the street. You and I, our families, our society, our people, our brothers and sisters, everyone, we are the woman in the street. And COVID and mask wearing and vaccines and all this propaganda, mind control bullshit, that's the boyfriend beating her. So we have a collective decision to make, and that is, are we going to allow the beatings to continue, or are we going to take a deep breath and come together and stop being controlled and divided? That's what the fuck's going on right now.
I think that's a brilliant analogy, and I love it. And I've been looking a lot into these like systems and how they're working lately. And one of the things that became clear is that it is a systematic problem. And so I have some connections, high level Canadian military. And so what he told me was that basically that in the Canadian military, they're not stoked on the government. They don't like the government. They're not going to turn on their own people. Same with, police force. And I know some people in Ontario Health and other organizations. But what seems to be a common thread is that you can only get so high in your ranking, and then you must become corruptible. So many people in high level positions are corruptible. It's not the nurses, it's not the everyday people, it's not, all these people going out, but there becomes this top down approach of you need to then do this, you need to follow this order. And so these higher levels are like, okay, we're the ones that are corruptible making these orders. And the nice thing is there's so much more of us. There's so many more of us, and we just have to say, we know the difference between right and wrong. We are not going to participate in that action because we know that there's a beating taking place. And interestingly, they found that if they witness a whole bunch of people, if there's a whole crowd of people and there's a problem and someone says help, a lot of time no one will do it because they think someone else is going to do it. And there's all these interesting, fascinating psychological dynamics, like the prison experiment and the one where they do the testing with the shock one. I think it's Schrodinger, or no, that's Schrodinger's cat. But where they do the shock therapy and they, basically people will shock the person until like death. It's an actor on the other side, and they just say, "Oh, you don't want to." Someone will post it in the comments, but it's this experiment where they would sit you down and say, and you shock the person, right? And then the person in the lab coat says, okay, keep going up, keep going up, keep going up. The person is acting on the other side, but they found that 9 out of 10 or something like that would actually give the person a shock that would kill them because a person in authority told them to do so. So I'm blanking on what that study is called, but so they know about all these different things. Yeah. And so this group dynamic is kind of being played on us right now, and so we kind of need to wake up as individuals and then share that, and just say, okay, we're not going to participate in that, we're going to do the thing that we know is right.
Think of it like this too, the corruption of the mind. I'll use the analogy of pornography because pornography ran my life for like 20 years. It's what disconnected me from success in business. It's what removed me from healthy, loving, connected relationships and healthy body. The corruption of the mind, like for an example of what you're speaking, it's like pornography isn't inherently evil, but its danger comes from its hooks of manipulation. Control and perversion, it really like taints the pure bright light energy of sex. to convince the viewer that the watcher that like they're not enough essentially. That's the hooks of pornography. And if you look at Rachel Fiore's work, or if you look at the book Unwanted, which is a phenomenal resource, any man or any woman, by the way, who's watching or listening with us, the exact same thing that Matt is talking about with the person being shocked is the exact same thing that I'm talking about with people that are being pulled into viewing pornography. Now, look, I'm not here to demonize pornography. I think there can be erotic art that's very tastefully done. But the same can be said about the news media, because if a news media outlet has an opinion, and if pornography has an opinion, and if you and I have an opinion, how do we make sense of it all? Like, how do we not get pulled into drugs, alcohol, pornography, shopping, overworking, addictions of any kind? How do we not fall prey to the calculated attack where behavioral psychologists study people's viewing habits on a micro level, and that's what these news outlets put out so that we are hooked into their system? How do we do it, Matt? Like, how do we take a huge inventory of what's going on here in my life? And what I'd love to share with you, it is only through the breath. If I am consciously giving my body inspiration, which in Latin it's inspiritus, right? To breathe. If I am breathing my body properly, then I am giving myself the fuel for my heart to make great decisions from a faculty of a clear mind that is non-compromisable. I can do anything if I'm breathing properly. The challenge is that most of us are like this. We have our phone. We're leaning forward. We're doing text neck. We're on the couch. We're huddled up. We're constricting our airways. 95% of our day is a constricted airway. We're not in proper posture, and we're being controlled by this. So why did I bring up pornography? Why did I stack that on what you're saying? It's because it's all the same psychological mechanism, and that is buy my shit, watch my stuff, listen to me, because you're not enough. You can't make your own decisions. You can't think for yourself. You don't have a connection to your internal faculty. And quite frankly, you've been taught to not love yourself. That's where this all comes from. And it's not about me being reductionistic. It's about the objective truth is that I would say the majority of people on planet Earth, and I know because I've done my deep work recently on this, do not love themselves, nor have they ever been taught to know what self-love even is, nor did their parents, nor did their parents. This is what Alan Watts talks about in his videos and his lectures, where he says it's all retch and no vomit. Everyone just, I want to change my life. I want to change my family. I want to change my epigenetics. I want to change, but no one actually has the courage to throw up the bullshit. No one has the courage to stop the retching and actually vomit it out. And I think you and I, a shared brotherhood that I feel with you, we're down to throw it up. We want to help other people throw up the bullshit. We want to help other people realize that you are loved, you are supported. You just have to choose. You have to choose yourself. You have to actually love yourself enough to understand all of the things that we're even discussing on this show today. You have to love yourself first. And if you don't do that, then good luck trying to have any kind of quality in your life, because to the degree that you love yourself is the degree that other people are going to treat you. And it'll happen on a very subparticle level, on a very subtle level. So long answer to what you're saying, long statement to what you're saying, bro. But the big piece here is like, we are in a corruption of the mind time in human existence. And it's so incredibly important. Like, it reminds me to breathe, that we have to breathe, because when we breathe, we can choose. Like it's written on my arm. Se posso respirare, posso scegliere, which in Italian means if I can breathe, I can choose. And it's not just some social media meme. Like, it's real for me. You know, if I don't do my breath work, I start to notice my mind races. If I don't do my breath work, I start to notice that I'm stressed out and I'm disconnected. And so it's really important. It's probably the most important thing, I think, during this time of the corruption of the mind.
Well, man, well, I agree with all that, and I love how you shared it, and I think that the root cause or the root intention, you know, why you're being taught not to love yourself or look outside yourself is so important, because when you study hypnosis, for self-hypnosis, for a positive way or installation, or for manipulation, whether it's sales and you, or on a bigger scale, which is what our governments and our media, all our television shows, all of that's owned by a few people with an intent, right? And same with the social media, there's an intent behind it. And I feel like that's one of
Six
the
companies.
main, yeah,
Six companies run the world.
In Canada, it's one company runs all of our major media, all newspapers, all things, you know, if it's not independent. So, and then
Yeah,
now with Google and all the other stuff, we've seen the weaponization of that, right? You
that's
can't
right.
even find the information. So how are you going to stand in conviction and truth when you can't listen to two arguments and know for sure one is more solid? That's how you
Mm,
know. So if that argument gets taken out, you can feel in your guts that something is off, but you don't, you know, especially when the opposers are so violent. You know what I mean? It's just like, yo,
yeah.
you know, what do you know about this? You don't know anything. So, um, yeah, man, I think you phrase that really well. And you also said, you know, it's an attack of the mind. I also think it's, you know, at the root cause, it's even an attack of the soul. You know, the mind gets
Yes.
infected, and then it's almost like a parasite, and it compromises our soul. And I feel like that's what's going on here. You know what I mean? All these choices, all these different things. That's why we feel it. You know what I mean? We
Yes.
feel what's right. We feel what's wrong. We know it. And that's, you know, that's how that's their entry point, is the mind, through the eyes. Eyes are windows to the soul. And then the mind gets corrupted. And you know, it's almost like a virus, right? It corrupts our software system, this beautiful thing that we all have, this internal guidance system, but you have all these little parasites, and they're all mental parasites. You know what I mean? And it creates an emotion, and it kind of frigs us up. So we need to be able to detox,
Yes.
disengage, to reconnect with the pure source, which can be accessed through breath or other ways.
How do we give I guess the big question I was feeling and thinking when you were talking, I love the analogy of the parasite, because holy shit, how could we talk about that in any category? But I'm feeling into this question, like, how do we give the parasites what they need so that we can live the life that we need? How do we give the parasites, which is essentially dark energy, dark matter, the vacuum that exists in the world? We cannot have light without dark. Now, this is kind of a philosophical lens too, so bear with me. But like, if you look at anything at all, the yin yang, the dark light, the sodium potassium, the high low, the chaos, the order, no matter what, there is always opposing forces in the world. It's like gravity and anti-gravity, right? So when I'm operating from a place of really loving myself, and I'm not just talking about like hugging people and sitting around a fire, I mean like viscerally in my being, on a somatic cellular level, do I actually love myself? Like when I look in the mirror, do I love myself? When I talk to Matt, when I talk to my lady, when I welcome people into my home, like, am I loving? Am I truly loving? Or can they sense within my nervous system and my psyche that I don't actually fully love myself, and I'm trying to use them to fill me up? Well, that in itself, that way of being, is parasitic. When people don't truly love themselves, they unknowingly, subconsciously, are driven by their shadow to be a parasite of their own. And that is exactly what the larger parasites, the six news media companies, the health companies that are making billions and billions of dollars on vaccines, guess what they're doing? They are capitalizing on people who don't love and trust themselves enough, because they're subconsciously driven by that same parasitic energy, to follow a bigger parasite that masquerades as spirit, that masquerades as the trusted one. And that parasite is sucking the most blood it possibly can. But guess what? It can't be fed unless people are actually somewhat parasitic themselves. And this is the way deep lens I want to go here with you of philosophy. And that is, we cannot have dark without light. There is always chaos finding order, but yet how much of that do we want to have pull us into evolution? If dark and light, and if yin and yang are always present, and within duality there's a singularness, so even in duality there's singularness, how do we do it? Like, this is a question that I'm feeling into right now for myself. I don't know if I have the ultimate answer, but I think the only way that we can lovingly try, and we can really give humanity a shot and give our collective evolution a shot, is if we stop being fucking parasites ourselves, start loving ourselves, and then we won't be subjective to the prey and to the hooks of the pornography, the shopping, the drugs, the alcohol, the news media, the companies telling you that they take care of your health and you don't. It's a big lens. It deserves a lot of rich discussion, but it's only for the people that feel called. I mean, look, I'm on your show. I know people are feeling called. So I don't think this is going over people's heads. I really feel like this is hitting them in the heart.
Yeah, man, that's a really great thought experiment. I agree with that. And I feel like fundamentally that's one of those things that we need to figure out. I've had a few guests on and that have talked to, well, a lot of guests have talked about self-love, and then one of them, I can't remember who, was just like, man, I love myself from top to bottom. And he looked pretty genuine. I was like, you know what? I felt like that way in spurts. And so for me, it's still an evolution.
Me
You
too.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, I wish that I had that, where I woke up and like, man, I love myself, and like in a really genuine way of appreciation. That would be fantastic.
Sure.
But I've gotten, I don't hate myself. So that's good. And so many people like, so many
Well,
people
if you hate
go
yourself,
around.
then you're way more susceptible to the hooks of the parasite.
Exactly. Yeah.
Tune
Exactly.
in. If you hate yourself, you are ripe for somebody to come in and control you.
Yes, 100%. And these things and these systems have a real effect on people, and it's so weird. Like you go, and I can't remember who it was. I think it was Dr. Dawson Church was on the show or someone like that, and he said, I'd ask the audience, how many of you like love and appreciate yourself?
Yeah.
And only a few hands would go up. Right. And it's so
what was his book, Mind Over Matter? Is that what he wrote?
Mind Over Matter. And
Mind
he
Over
wrote
Matter.
a couple other ones too. And so you should have him on your show if you haven't. Have you had him on your show?
No, that's a cool one.
Oh yeah, I can connect you if you want. Awesome. Really knows his stuff. He's into the, he can tell you scientifically what's going on with all that, but he makes it grounded, that we can apply it, that we can understand it, that we can create the result we want. How do we get into self-love? Because when you look at these things, and for me, it was my martial arts side, was the combat side, was the war side, because I've heard before there's this esoteric agenda to kind of make us think the world is all good and, all this kind of stuff. And I was in that camp for a bit, but the martial arts side was always like, wait a second.
Yeah.
And making peace with the predator. I've been using it as like a lion in a cave. Back in the day, we were all living in caves, and someone's like, no, lions don't exist. Somebody gets all messed up by a lion, and the lions want to deceive us to say, we don't even see you, so we just pluck you. And that's actually how predators work. They want to deceive you. They don't want to fight. They don't want you to look them in the eyes. They don't want strong prey. They're kind of like cats, where like they want to sneak up on you and get you and make it easy. They don't want this combat. And so that's where we kind of got to be aware of that. And as we become strong and aware and whole, and we take our hearts and our minds and our ways of being, and we bring it back to ourselves, and we're in this mystery. And so there is some sort of creator or spirit or life force that we are all connected to. We have a divine soul. We need to figure out what that is and connect to it, because that's our guide. Yes. But it doesn't come in like, unfortunately, this being that will share with you everything. It's this feeling and internal system we all have. And that's why we have to do it within this mystery, within this faith, because we have to make it by choice. We choose to move into parasitical and harming others through ignorance and cognitive dissonance and these other things, or we can choose to move into collaboration, to life, to all these positive things, but we have to do it by choice. And there's no certainty either way. It's just, that's why we can be manipulated. And so if we can really learn to be kinder to ourselves, authentically love ourselves, and even wherever you are in the journey, if you hate yourself and you just hate yourself a little less, great. Just move in that direction, intend in that direction, pray and work in that direction. It's not about this state that stays there forever, but it's your intention to move. Because if you are in that lower state, you are going to be much more susceptible to manipulation, to harm. But if you can grow in your inner strength, it's the most important thing you can do. And it is an individual choice, but we have to do that. Like I use the example all the time, and I know I'm ranting here. I want to get you to jump in, but I use the weight example all the time. If you are way overweight, right, nobody can do the work for you, but it's a physical thing you can see. Spiritually, we can't see it. We can't see this sickness in our spirituality. Like we kind of can, but not in the same way a physical thing. That person has to make the choice and do the work to see the transformation. So we can do that energetically and spiritually. And it's the best thing we do for anyone else, so they can feel it and experience it.
I'm inspired by what you just said. You remind me of the head to heart connection and I go to this book a lot, and I'm sure you've talked about it on the show. And if you haven't, then awesome, let's do it. And it's Hawkins, Letting Go. And in this book, he not only talks about the scale of emotion, right? That anger is more powerful than despair. And then after anger comes a surrender, and then acceptance, and then on your way up to actualization. And it's, for me, it's not just an intellectual thing. I'm not talking about Hawkins' work from the mind. I'm talking about Hawkins' work from the somatic, the throat, the heart, the solar plexus, I'm talking from an energetic system. And that system and that we all have, we're all born with that system. It's right behind me, right? We have all these chakras, and then around those chakras in my artwork, I put earth, wind, water, fire, because earth is who we are. It's a reciprocal loop. What I'm saying is like, man, we are so driven by the mind here in this culture and this 3D that we become disconnected from the body. And then when we're disconnected from the body, everything that you just said occurs. We lose sovereignty. We start to be easily controlled. We don't know what it's like to even be in a body. I mean, think of this, you guys. When was the last time you actually felt grateful to be in a body and you loved your body and you like enjoyed moving your body? For most people, especially when they're under mental attack through news media and everything else, they're not breathing, they're not in their body, they don't feel safe in their body, they don't love their body, and that's okay. I just want to share with you, like, the body needs the mind and the mind needs the body. The head to heart connection, think of it like this loving feedback loop that really sends and receives messages of what is needed in the present moment. Whatever is needed in the present moment is the lens for the soul to see from. So if we're a unique expression of consciousness in a body, in a physical form, then my soul uses that physical form to express and see itself in the world. And so if we are overwhelmed by either one of them, let's say we're overwhelmed by the mind, it'll cut off our connection to the body. If we're overwhelmed by the body, maybe we have type 2 diabetes, or we're super overweight, or we're not breathing properly, it'll disconnect us from the other half. So you see, they feed into each other. Like anything that overwhelms the head or the heart will shut off the reciprocal connection to one another. And so that's really what we're talking about here today. Our work isn't just to have conversations. Our work is to actually, for me, go in the garage, sit in the sauna, do the cold therapy, get on the floor, do my stretching, do my mobility, use my kettlebell. Like, that's my work. And so when I'm not doing that work, oh my God, I start to have the awareness that I'm not, because my body starts screaming at me. And then I'm more disconnected from my mind, and vice versa. So a tactical thing that I just want to share, which is amazing, it is an emotional inventory process. The emotional inventory process for you, for me, for all of us, is real simple. You get a little journal, and on your journal, you take a pen, you draw a line down your journal. On the left side of the journal, you write 10 things, truly 10 things that you know are causing you the most pain, the most stress, the most torment in your life. Really. And then on the right side of the page, you take that same lens, you take that same awareness, and you write 10 things that you know you really are grateful for. Like, really grateful. Not just like, I'm grateful for potato chips, like, I'm grateful for my wife. I'm grateful for my husband. I'm grateful for my children. I'm grateful for my community, whatever it is. I'm not saying to platitude this gratefulness. I'm saying, like, somatically feel it. And then you sit with that. That's the deep emotional inventory that most people don't do. And when you're at the end of it, you circle the one on the left that you despise the most, whatever's causing you the most pain in your life. And then you circle the thing on the right that's causing you the most gratitude. And then here's the kicker. You call a friend, you reach out to another human being, whether it's Zoom or phone, in person is best. And you literally tell them, you know what? I am actualizing. I am becoming my best self. I want to share this inventory process that I took. Is that okay with you? Guess what that does? It closes the gap between your mind and your body, because now you're honest about what you're experiencing and what you're experiencing, both in mind and body. So the only way we can do this, Matt, is if we all take a collective emotional inventory. And the one thing I'll share is, like, before we ever do that, we have to learn how to get into our body first. Because if I'm not in my body and I don't know what it's like to actually breathe properly, this is why in the Breathe, Breath, and Wellness program, the number one thing feedback is people go, wow, I can actually meditate now. I'm doing my breath work. I can actually sit still in my chair because I've connected to my breath. I've experienced the tension that's going on in my body. And then after you do your breath work, you do the emotional inventory. That's the starting place, my friends. Like, start right there. I promise it'll be unique to you. It's how you become less of a parasite. It's how you become more loving. That's where it all begins.
Wow, man. Well, that was epic. I love all that. And I like the practical application because of the tools. I think they're so important to actually go and do something. And the Alan Watts cough analogy was really good too,
Yeah.
So
It's all retch and no vomit.
Yeah. We actually need to do something, and it is so
Yeah.
fundamental that if we're well and we're taken care of, we're going to be providing
Mm,
for other people. If we're not, we're going to need to take from other people, and that goes for emotional states, our energies, and how we operate in the world. And so,
yes.
if we want to be givers, if we want to be life affirming and supportive, like we're going to be a tree unto other people. We can't be this like tree that's got no water, no food, no apples on it. You know what I mean, or whatever. And so we need to go take from other people just to survive, right? And because we're
Yes.
being harmed. And so it's a fundamental thing, and it is philosophical, but it's also very basic too. It's almost like very common sense. You know what I mean? And
I'm
go
so
ahead.
sorry, bro. Can you
No, go ahead.
pause me real quick? I have to get somebody at the door. I would never
Okay,
do
no, that's
this
all
on the
right.
show.
No, that's all right.
Okay.
Yeah, go
Okay.
go ahead and get the door. I can pause the recording, but I can't pause YouTube. So for everybody on YouTube, our apologies. We'll resume in one moment when Josh gets back here. I'll play you some chimes in the meantime. Actually, these epic chimes. This is perfect sound and frequency.
Okay. To only on a
Wait,
live show.
wait, hold
Only on
on,
a live
hold,
show would the
hold on.
guest have to go and get his door.
Yeah, it's all good,
That's how
man.
you know it's live, y'all.
Wait, let me go resume. Okay, yeah, no, it's all good, man. You know, actually, that hasn't happened in a while where somebody had to get up and leave. So way to go, man. No, I'm just joking. Life happens, you know.
Right on.
I'm not professional. It's like, you know, I'm just doing something. I'm having a conversation with
It
good
reminds
people.
me of like during Joe Rogan, like I remember he was interviewing that guy with the beard, you know, the kind of like what's his
Got to be
name?
more specific than that.
Dan Bilzerian. Dan Bilzerian.
Oh
And
yeah.
Dan's like, "Can I go pee?" And he like went to pee in the middle of Joe Rogan's podcast. So, but I wouldn't do that unless it was super important, man. So thank you for that pause
All
right
good.
there.
All good.
And
I
also,
can.
how is this a beautiful moment too? It's like life isn't perfect, and during all of these experiences we have, the choice is just to have fun with it. Personal development and transformation, it doesn't have to be always so fucking hard. Like, yes, there's going to be moments where it's hard, but sometimes when shit happens, you just got to laugh it off. There's no way else around it, you know?
Well, I think that's a really great topic because it's about the process and how we frame the process or work. And so, being a
Yes.
martial artist, all of that training is ruthless. It's hard. It sucks. You know, when I was in China training with the monks, we were punching and kicking trees. You know why? When we were doing meditation, some of them sometimes you call them like a hard sit, where you sit and you don't move. You see how
Yeah.
long you can stay there and do a thing, and you're like, why are you doing this? You're just pushing yourself. But really, at the end of it, you can go through and say, "Oh, this sucks," or be a bit more playful. And that's something that I'm trying to learn a little bit more. Not make everything so darn serious. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do it with a playful attitude and the most empowering frame that I can. You know, even though it's challenging and it can be difficult at times, it's not always serious. You know what I mean? Life is many things, and how do we get into that state of joy and connection and presence, right? And I feel like that's where the balance part is, and that's why I really like the yin yang symbol, because it's kind of both worlds, where we need the soft, we need hard, we need this
Yeah.
duality. You know, we need time for rest and we need time to push. You know what I mean? And all of that will help us develop the acuity to know the most effective or not even effective, but most ideal frame that we want to go into. You know what I mean? I'm not going to have the same frame of mind when I'm taking my daughter to the park that I am if
Sure.
I'm going to do some hard martial arts training, right? I can develop that kind of acuity, you know, that softness, that adaptability. And so when we develop these skills, we can apply them to different situations as necessary.
Yeah. And also, skill building is a skill itself, right? So you could say,
Yep.
I want to be a better fill in the blank. But until you actually enjoy and love the process of learning, the process of skill building, I'd rather be good at building skill than building any skill. Really, like I would much rather like enjoy the process of skill building and learning and taking in information than being the best podcaster in the world or having the most social media followers in the world. Like, yeah, you can do that if you want, but on a grand scale, And I'm curious how you feel about this too, man. On a grand scale, don't you think that we're all God experiencing God's self? I mean, we are just made in the image of a creator of some kind. And it's not a bearded dude in the sky, although you kind of have a God energy right now with your background and your beard. But I don't think it's a bearded dude in the sky. I think what God really is God is love. That's all God really is. God's love. And God isn't a being. God is an ever present, omnipresent energy that creates all things, that speaks through people like you and I. And God even speaks through the parasites. It's all God, Godding, essentially. I got my hair ripped back when I did a 3-part, almost 5-hour podcast with Paul Chek. And I was at his home, and there was a moment where I had to be like, we need to stop the recording. I literally had to call timeout on the recording because I was in real time getting my consciousness expanded so fast about what God really is and about what we're all doing here that it was almost like that moment in the Matrix where Neo throws up, like where he was like, what did Morpheus say to him? You remember what he said to him when he was throwing up?
No.
He was on the floor and he goes, just breathe. Breathe, Neo, breathe. That's what we all need to do. I think we're all afraid to really breathe in how powerful, how loved, and how mysterious that we really are in life, right? We're loved, we're powerful, we're God-godding, but also there's this element of just total mystery, total just the greatest expanse you could ever imagine that is the universe. It's an expanse that even if you tried to comprehend it, Matt, you couldn't even comprehend it. I'll never forget this. I was in the hallway. I was 13 years old. My grandpa, he asked me, he's like, are you going to church? And I was like, no, Grandpa, I'm not going to church because like these people, I don't trust them. And he's like, do you believe in God? And I'm like, I don't know. And he said, well, the reason that God doesn't operate in time is because God has put man on the earth, and man always uses beginning, middle, and end. We always need a reference point. Our ego always needs a reference point of beginning, middle, and end, right? I'm 40. I'm, quote, almost halfway through my life. But not really, because life and existence is eternal. God's love is eternal. God's presence is eternal. And to the degree we can connect with that, we can spend whatever 100 years we have on this planet in true harmony. Doesn't mean we're always going to have an easy life and challenges aren't going to happen. But the degree of addiction that I had in the past to my emotions and to making my life hard was actually me trying to push God out of my life, trying to not have faith, trying to not trust in something has a way bigger plan and a way bigger picture than just this soul right here. And it's egoic. When we all choose to not take the inventory, not do our breath work, not connect the head to heart, be a parasite in ourselves and be angry at the parasites around us, all the while not taking time to actually connect with ourselves and connect with God, there's no way to live a life of harmony. There's no way to have an amazing life. It's just not present because we're actually disconnecting ourselves from what gave us life when we do that. Graham Hancock talks about this in a wonderful video from After School on YouTube. He said that the shamans, when he went to the jungle, the one thing he asked, he said, why is humanity so disconnected? Why are we in such chaos? And all the shamans reflected, because you've severed your connection to God. The reason you're all in chaos here is because you're letting Lucifer win. You're letting these parasites feed. You're disconnecting yourself from the love and light of God. But what'll really twist your noodle is the dark part's God too. That's the crazy part. That's the mystery.
Wow, man, I love all that. Yeah, it is very fascinating. And I feel like it is very common sense how disconnected we are from spirit, and life. Yes. and every facet, what we live and what we do is incredibly artificial, right? We're not on the ground half the time, we're on cement. We're disconnected in every single way that we possibly could be. And the journey and the challenge is going to be to reconnect with ourselves, to reconnect with life, like what is actually real, because we're eating artificial food. We're getting manipulated through our television. People are telling us lies that we're perceiving as truth. And it's almost in Genesis, ends of times, where they're talking about, cursed be the ones who say the truth is evil, right? We're in this also upside down world. It's, people who are telling the truth are being banned and shadow banned and blacklisted and attacked, and we're feeling something disconnected. And the nice thing is it's an opportunity to make a choice. We can make a choice to move toward and support what is real, true, and in our hearts, what we know to be right. And so when we're looking at the world and we're seeing what's going on, we might be confused. And again, if we go down to that very basic thing of like Luciferianism is anything that seeks to restrict or bind. So you can have your opinion. It might be the total opposite, but I'm not going to try to restrict or bind you. And I'm
Yeah.
not going to put any of my energy into manipulating you. I can share my point of view and that might resonate with some people and not for others. And everything I'm going to say is not going to resonate with everyone 100% because I have no idea what is actually going on. I know a little bit of a little bit, and my work and my process has to be mine, but I can honestly intend to be of service. And this work, I think fundamentally, when people are coming to it, they're new and kind of quote unquote waking up, right? It's like, oh man, something's wrong here. You know, what's been going on?
Yeah.
They always want to acquire something. It's always about getting. What am I going to get from meditation? What am I going to get from breath work? What am I going to get from shadow work? What am I going to get from personal development? And it's more about what are you going to let go of? You know, what
That's
are
right.
you going to let go of? You have to let go of every single thing, you know, make peace with your death, letting go of materialism and what you're going to acquire. What am I going to get if I live and pursue my life purpose? I don't know. But I'm not sure. But probably you're going to get fulfillment and truth and honesty and self-respect and self-love because you're now on this journey. Now, is it certain? 100%. It is not certain. But also the other way is not certain. And you might notice in that other way, in this artificial way, that you're not connected to anything real. You're not doing anything that is supporting other people. And you're saying in your mind, oh, I have to do this because, well, could you let go of your big house? Could you live in a smaller house? Because what I've noticed with everybody that I've worked with and everybody I've seen do it, no matter what they were financially up or down, wherever it was, the universe always provides a way for you to be taken care of, right? That level of abundance is different for different people and what they get, but it's not about what you can get. You need to be content and have massive integrity with being okay with whatever the universe is going to provide from you making honest choices to be life affirming, to not be that parasite on other people, to move towards your own evolution. And that energy and that contribution helps everybody else. It is always harmonious with the environment. And so I think that's a huge distinction of doing this work. It's letting go of all of these old ideas, these ways of being, these things that we need to acquire. And it's like, how am I going to give? How am I going to connect with what's real, with what's true, with what's honest? And then I got to let the cards fall where they may. And that's actual faith, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. When you say this work, I'll put it in air quotes because people get misconstrued and confused about what this work actually is. And I feel like I can sense that really what this work is unlearning and reteaching ourselves all the lessons, all the energy cords, all the wretch with no vomit, all the shit that we inherited from mom and dad, grandpa and grandma, great grandpa, great grandma, everything else. It's about letting that go. And that is actually the biggest threat to the ego. The ego is not my enemy. The ego is my amigo, by the way. I don't think the ego is the enemy. But I think that the ego is really just a space where I'm really wanting to feel safety, security, and if anything threatens that in any way, which, by the way, to live is not to be safe or secure unless you choose. That's what really creates and perpetuates this familial and this passed down generational inherited trauma. That's really what our entire conversation today, Matt, has really been. Look at the products, look at the fruit that's been yielded from thousands and thousands of years of generational trauma. That's essentially what we're looking at here. And so you and I are in this. Look, how fucking grateful are we that we get to record a podcast and have thousands of people share it with us, that we can actually do work, the real work of understanding who we are, understanding how we're showing up in the world, and truly understanding and forgiving. This is the big one. Doing the work to forgive our parents and forgive our grandparents and forgive all of that lineage and that generational pain. Because if we do not, guess what I bring to my son? Guess what you bring to your children? Guess what anyone brings as human beings propagate and populate the earth? More generational pain, more generational trauma. That's all we're going to be giving. And so it stops with me, it stops with you, it stops with all of us here on this podcast. And the only way we can fuel it, by the way, is being connected to head to heart. And then we've talked about ways you can do that through breath and journaling. So it's an amalgam. There's a lot that goes into this, right? Like it's easy for somebody to listen to a show and be like, yeah, that pumped me up. But now what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? And I don't say that in a bullying way. I say that in a loving way. Like, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to choose to do about it? Because the bridge between knowing and doing is you. The bridge between knowing and doing is your heart. It's your head to heart connection. Most people do here, but they don't do here. You got to do here in order to do here, really.
100%. I was just thinking in my mind, he's tapping his head and his heart for the audio listeners, because someone
for the
Robert
subtitles.
with Robert Grant, yeah, he had so many videos like I can't see what he was doing. Well, I agree with what you're saying, man, and I'll just add that there's no perfect formula, and you just do something, and it doesn't have to be massive, and consistency is helpful, and just start that intention.
Yeah.
Whether you want to just
Start where you
going
are.
for a walk, start where you are, try
Start
some
where you are.
meditation, try some sound, just get into it, because forever I was looking for the right technique and way. And you've done hundreds of podcasts. I've done hundreds of podcasts, read hundreds of books, experimented with hundreds of techniques.
Sure.
Just try something, and then you keep trying and learning, conscious language courses. I've done many of those different courses, things like that. And ultimately I'm left with myself. Even that's what the big lesson I learned when I was in Nepal with the Buddhist monks, and they were amazing. And it was interesting because they answered all the questions like human beings. That's what surprised me. I was expecting some sort of mystical answer, and they just were really, really good listeners. And they gave a very, very compassionate answer to whatever I told them. It was so real, And I was like, oh man, I just wanted to kind of float on a cloud and get an enlightenment. And they're like, this is a process. This is an evolution of you and your soul and your way of being. And they would just answer it in a very real way. And so that's where this kind of connection happens. It's like, it's a whole paradigm shift on how you navigate the world, because it goes from, oh, this is actually a distinction I'm kind of getting a little bit of a deeper understanding of. So you could be of this world, and you can choose to navigate it and create your life by design. Now, what you get back from that design, we don't know. It could be success or whatever. Now, the other option is to design or not design your life, get it created for you, and get these different jobs and these things and these material objects, and put no actual conscious intent into what you're creating. So you're creating a soulless life. There is no spirit to your creation. That's some deep shit to me, man. I don't know if it's conveyed that way, but in my mind, I just in my heart was like, oh wow,
You're getting a galactic download. No,
oh yeah, but it's like you create.
I feel like
there's no essence of you and your presence in this world, because you've chosen to just go get the secure path to go make some money, to go buy some shit, to go get a car, to literally contribute nothing to the world. That is brutal. Or you can go and say, who am I? What have I come here to do? How can I create, and what that reward or what you get from, we don't know. And that's the faith side, and that's the letting go side. It's not about that. You will be taken care of. And nobody can do that. There's no faking it. It has to be 100% true and honest, right? And that's totally up to you. So that's a big, huge letting go process. But then you put the soul back into your life, because you are choosing. And there is no perfect way. There is no right way. It is the honest intention to try and to continue to try. And that's how you see the universe and God and spirit and creator is real, because things will happen that you will get those crumbs and say, oh, wow, what a beautiful thing. An entirely different way to navigate life. And this Luciferian system, this system of deception is, come play over here. It's secure. You have no idea you're participating in harming others and destroying the planet through these unconscious choices, because you believe you must do it. This is the way that it's told. There is no other option. And I'm going to kind of cap off this rant with this memory that I'm having is when I was a teenager, I was with all my friends, and they were going to go to university, right? And I was at a weird year where you had to do an additional year of high school. If you wanted to go to university, you had to get university credits, but you could go to college without this additional year. And so we were having this discussion, and everybody was going to do the additional year of high school to then go to university, which was 4 years. So that's a 5 year swing. So I could go right into college and get it done in 2 years, right? Because I didn't want to be really dumb. If I didn't go to university, I was stupid because college is less respected, right? You know, you're not as smart as a university student. So I'm already like sacrificing there, but I can't not go to college because then you're really, not quote unquote smart or intelligent in the world, right? And so we're having these discussions, and nobody was considering travel. Nobody was asking, like, nobody wanted to explore. Nobody was thinking about what they really wanted to do, how they wanted to learn, how they wanted to engage with the world. 100% just we're going to go to university. And I was like, well, what do you want to do? Like, I don't know, but this uh, degree will get me this best job. And that was the thought process. And that was what trained in us. But it just kind of goes back to this default. There was no other way. People didn't feel there was another option. And I thought there must be another way. There has to be one other way. And that's cutting loose from this system. Right. And it's a scary thing to do, but you have to cut loose and design it and make it on your own and participate, here and there if you have to, but the goal is to get out of it completely.
Yeah, and isn't the goal actually to live our life well? So if we're going to
Mm-hmm.
live our life well, then we have to choose our life. And I know we've gone like really high level and like a bit esoteric on the show, which like shocker. I kind of knew we would do that anyways, which is fun. But I want to really give people something they can sink their hands and their heart into. Like if you're listening or watching this and you're feeling like, oh my God, so many things they're saying is lighting up my chakras like a Christmas tree, where do you start? Yes, you start with that emotional inventory I talked about and a lot of the concepts that you've talked about too, Matt. But I believe the easiest place to begin is by being in harmony and being in real communion with the way that you breathe. I don't know if you noticed this, but when you speak, I'm consciously breathing through my nose, like my mouth is closed. I'm lightly pushing the tongue to the roof of my mouth because I really want to listen to you. I really want to be present with you. And I found that we are all under attack. Our energy, our bandwidth, our attention is essentially currency. It's turned into currency. I don't know if you guys know this, but like this right here, you are being harvested. You are being harvested. Your energy, your time, your eyes, it's all currency. So with that said, how do we put currency back in our own bank? We breathe. This is what the journey I've been on for 3 years. This is why I created the Breathe, Breath, and Wellness program so that people would actually be the creator of their own lives by taking emotional inventory because they're connected head to heart within themselves. And so I would absolutely love to give this entire community a starting point. And the starting point is go to breathwork.io and then use the code podcast50. It's 50% off for the entire community here. It's something like I really want you to do. I already made it cheaper than you going to dinner, but now you can have it like really at the best price. You have no excuses. Like you can start there. You can learn how to breathe. It's 3 weeks long. It's everything A to Z for you to learn how to be in communion with your own breath. So you don't have to be a slave to your biology. You don't have to be like hooked into these parasitic energies. You can get rid of this shit. It's the way out, but it's not out. It's actually through. It's through your own bullshit, through your own parasitic stuff, and through your own lineage. There's no way around it. We must go through it. So at least you can have an ally. And the greatest ally in my life has been my breath, the way that I breathe, the way that I consciously teach myself to breathe. So breathwork.io and then podcast 50 is the code for this entire amazing community, man. So I really think that's the starting point for all of us is like, start there. Start with the way you breathe. It'll help everything else.
Oh man, well I appreciate that. And one thing I'll say about that too is, breath is so important in many different ways, but it's like one of the very few things that parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, you keep
Yes.
using somatic, right? You have to feel it, you have to do it, and you can actually take control of the body through breath. It's supposed to be done, it's done for you, right? The body's just doing it for you, but then you can actually take control of it. It's much harder to take control of the heart. You can't go, okay, heart, slow down, right? You can
Right.
change your breathing, then the heart will slow down, but you can't do it like breath, where I can literally just stop it if I choose, and then I can breathe in deep if I choose for whatever my capabilities are.
Yep.
But that affects the nervous system, and it gives that little bit of space of choice. And we are so reactive, and you touched on this before, where it's like, oh, the breath gives me choice. Well, one of the fundamental things that meditation teaches you is that, if you take a breath and then make a decision, you have a bit of a gap where 99% of people, they just react and they feel like they are subject to that emotional reaction, right? A thing happens in their environment and then a reaction happens. They're like, well, of course I would do that because this is what's going on. And so breath is one of these amazing things because unlike meditation, which I also think is a great practice, you can, I think it's just a bit easier and a bit more visceral. You know what I mean? Like it's a bit more of a visceral experience. And so it's one of the best tools to kind of hack in there. And then the last thing I'll say is that, for me, one of the things that I created a while back was the Soul Compass course. And that was like something that I tried to take everything that I knew into a design, just something simple and practical that you could do. And I feel like this is one of the expressions of your work where you could go so much deeper into so many different avenues, but you're like, hey, this is where you start. This is what you actually do. This is the simplest form of the medicine. And so go through it. And for me, I've done so many different courses and so many different things. So I'm excited to go through this. But I invite people to start doing them. Right. And we invest in the beers and all these different things. And we're so resistant to giving people like a course or whatever. It's like, oh, I can't do $50. I can't do $100, but you spend $150 on shoes, but not on your spiritual, emotional, physical development. That's the only thing I've ever invested in. And I have no idea how much it is, but it's a ton, hundreds of thousands at least. And it's always worth it because it helps me on my emotional, it helps me in my human experience to evolve. You know what I mean? And so, some of them aren't as good as others, but there's no poor investment in yourself.
Amen. Mic drop. I mean, that's basically the crux of everything here is how do we be ourselves? How do we be authentic? How does Matt be Matt? How does Josh be John? How do we be ourselves? We be ourselves by being in communion with us and not blocking it and keeping our conduit clean, our mind, our spirit, our body, the way that we breathe, the way that we eat. I mean, yes, it's an amalgam of many things for sure, but it has to come from a choice point. And I do believe, Matt, that these things are gifts, all this COVID, all this bullshit, all this mind control. Dude, what's going to happen is that the powers at the very top, it's been called the spider. If you look at who am I talking about? The spider. Who made up that? He was on Brian Rose a whole bunch. Why am I blanking on his name?
Oh, David Icke.
David Icke.
Well, one of my Native American teachers, David, talks about this prophecy of the spider in the web.
Okay, so whatever it is, like the spider at the top, it's really there to wake us up. COVID, vaccines, forced mask wearing, all this bullshit, fear, it's all here as a deep, dark contrast for us to resonate from, for us to grow from. I'm not spiritually bypassing it. I'm not placating it. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. It's there. But how are we going to frame it so that we're loving ourselves more, showing up in the world and loving other people? You guys need to cry. You guys need to feel your emotions. You guys need to actually be with your shit because there's gifts there. And I think that's the conversation that we need to continue, man.
100%, dude. Well, I love it, man. I'm a big fan of your work and just appreciate you coming on and everything that you do and just engaging in this process fully. So, this has been a treat. I love chatting with friends. This was amazing. Is there anything that you wish that I had asked or anything you want to talk about before we close it up?
I just want to close with this. Like we covered so much ground. I think the show notes for this one could be like to the floor.
Well, I have them, so they're pretty long.
we mentioned resources and books and all this stuff. Out of all of these things, what makes people hear, think, feel, and do? In the middle of all of that, it is you being lovingly connected to yourself and lovingly connected to curiosity of what could happen. That is it, period, end of story. The bridge between knowing and doing is you. It's your heart, it's your curiosity, it's the way that you love yourself, it's the way that you practice loving yourself. Maybe for you, it's like less hating yourself, whatever it is. Like, it's all good. Start where you are, you're loved, you're perfect, it's okay. I think what we need in the world is a big, deep breath, a big hug, and someone to say universally, for every human to hear, it's okay. It's okay. Just start today, start with where you are, tune into your breathing and everything will work out.
Beautiful. I love it, brother. Well, I appreciate you and your work. I invite people to check out the Wellness Force podcast. It is epic. Check out the course. And just start doing something, because as you gain that knowledge and mastery through experience, you're going to share what you liked and what you enjoyed with other people. And that's how we really get this thing going. You know what I mean? That you're not going to, what do they say? The revolution will not be televised. It's going to be internal, but we're going to change our frequency. We're going to change our states of being, and people will feel that, and they'll have the opportunity to come, and everybody is invited, but we have to do the work ourselves. You know what I mean? Or whatever you want to call it, our own evolution. But we have to consciously engage and choose that. And it's a beautiful space to be in, because you're going to find amazing people, but ultimately you're going to grow in your own connection and divinity and whatever you want to call it. So appreciate you, brother. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're gonna have to come back again.
Okay, awesome.
Cool. See you guys.